Welcome to another episode of On the Grind. I'm your host, William A. Neal, Communications and Government Affairs Officer for Belize Sugar Industries Limited, BSI. On the Grind is a magazine-style broadcast show designed to inform, educate, and communicate with viewers how the northern sugar industry works. Our hope is that we will peel back the layers on the industry and demonstrate the way things work from the farm to the factory and everything in between. However, we will not stop at our borders. As one of the country's chief exports and foreign exchange earners, we will travel across the seas and oceans to our markets in CARICOM, Europe, and hopefully beyond. Produced by the Communications Department of BSI, the show, via feature stories, spotlights people, successes, challenges, transformation, and the evolution of the industry as we journey to sustainability. The goal is to build incrementally the understanding of the northern sugar industry, and in so doing, highlight incrementally as well its importance, its role, and its value to the economic viability of the country. In the world of economics, the broad definition of industry is a fundamental driver and opportunity for the economic and social growth of a nation, a point fully realized by residents of Orange Walk and Corozal, the Sugar Belt, where it is the lifeblood of the North and a socio-economic and cultural way of living. South of Orange Walk, our aspiration is to broadcast images to change minds and shift perceptions that the northern sugar industry is merely a hotbed of contention and controversy. Modernization, digitalization, automation, energy efficiency, innovation, and technology drive the transformation from raw bulk to direct consumption sugars and improved efficiencies from field to factory and shipping logistics while improving environmental stewardship. In today's episode, we have sit-down studio interviews, another out and about segment, and also introduce a new people spotlight in collaboration with our HR department. Rev up, we're on the grind. Let's get into our show. Olivia Carballo-Avilez is BSI's Cane Farmers Relations Manager. In this first sit down, she talks about her recruitment by BSI, setting up a new department, and then expanding it to meet the growing needs of farmers as the industry journeys to sustainability and increased productivity. She talks about being a woman in a male-dominated industry and designing programs to increase women's participation and visibility as the industry moves forward.
Well, in 2013, when the ASR group was doing the due diligence for the partnership with BSI at the time, I was at the Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association. Actually, we were working on a soil project and mapping project, and there I think the leadership of ASR saw the importance of data and information from the farmer's perspective. And I was actually recruited to come and sort of bridge some of those activities that the farmers were doing with what BSI could be doing with farmers. And to be honest, one of my first tasks was to, along with Mark McLachlan, was to get the farmers together with BSI leadership as well to do a strategic development plan for the industry, which included both the cane part, the field part, and the factory part, as well as the logistics and supply chain, the entire supply chain. So that really was how I came to BSI. I had 4 to 5 years experience as the environmental officer at Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association, where we worked together with the team then to uplift and maintain the fair trade standards for the Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association, which was the only cane farmers association at the time. I did a bachelor's degree in biology with education, and my passion really was the environment and conservation efforts, sustainability efforts. So prior to coming into the sugar industry, I was very much into conservation, the social marketing of conservation, how you change behaviors of practice that is needs to improve. And so fortunately, I saw an opening for environmental officer in the north. And so it's always the goal maybe of Orinduaqueños to be able to work in your own district. So that brought me back home along with my husband and my family.
Now, let's talk now. You move into a department that was non-existent. Um, was it a challenge simply because you'd have to build something where there was nothing? Or did you look at it as, carte blanche to actually live your dreams to the fullest?
Well, definitely I was a bit nervous because I was asking, okay, well, what am I really going to do? Is there a TOR? At that time, the farm manager acted as both farm manager of what is called the Cane Growing Project, CGP, and had some relationship with the association. But it was a post that was together. When I was recruited and had literally to create the TOR, I was also very excited because I thought of the potential that, listening to the farmer's perspective from where I was able to bring that, the needs and the concerns, and also match that with what the leadership at BSI was thinking. So definitely it was very exciting, but definitely also cautious because I wanted to make sure that there is a balance between that. No?
Now, how did your stint at the BSCFA actually prepare you for the role as cane farmer relations?
Well, I think definitely working with the farmers, you learn a lot. I learned a lot from collaborating with them and seeing the challenges firsthand. Also listening to their perspective of how really they saw the mill. And I was one of them there in a way, right? But I was able to also then come in here at BSI and really look at it now more objectively, but also from the perspective of what farmers would ask. And the work at BSCFA was very critical because it was about sustainability. How do we better our supply to BSI? And that has really come into perspective when I'm sitting on a desk trying to plan something for farmers. Obviously, our most important challenge is ensuring that what we're planning, we're able to execute. And once one farmer, I remember Mr. Gregorio Espirito came to my desk at BSCFA, and he said, you know what I like about your programs is it really takes the farmer into consideration. And he gave me one advice. He said, never plan something from off a desk, right? Because it won't work. And I have brought that with me. And definitely, yes, you have to plan it through a computer and through a process. But the first thing is to go out and look at the situation. What is the problem? Identify the problem. What are the knowledge and attitudes that need to be developed? You know, what are our farmers, what do they need to understand? First, how can we change attitudes? What values do we need to develop? And critical to this is identifying the barriers. What are the barriers? No one will do anything if there are too many barriers. We have to reduce the barriers, and we have to look at the benefits of how can we really ensure that our programs offer benefits. Anybody will want to do something if there are benefits, but if there are too many barriers, you won't achieve behavior change on anything. When we came to BSI, it was only myself and Jeremy Gongora. It was a two-man team but obviously at BSI, you have a larger team that you can tap into. But at the time, it was only 2 people in the department. Jeremy was focused on communication, on the materials itself. And then what we did was to look at what else is needed. And first and foremost is that direct connection with the farmer. Again, comes back, to the need of going on the ground to find out what the issues are, what the problems are in some cases, so that you're able to develop strategies. And therefore, following that, we added a team of field officers, and we also added a GIS tech, Geographic Information Systems Technology Officer, who really is the one doing the data and the mapping. Of course, we use a lot of mapping in our work, and so we added that person. So now we also now need an assistant in the team, and then we collaborate closely now with the communications department. So the communications department became something separate. So Jeremy now, along with the team, has oversight of what needs to be developed for communication aspects.
In your transition from working with the association to working with the mill, what would you say was the first critical lesson that you learned?
Ouch. I think the first lesson was, being called the enemy. I came from the farmers to BSI, and all of a sudden I'm seen as the enemy. On that area, I was seen as helping the farmer, trying to develop, but I haven't changed in person. But when I transitioned to a different umbrella per se, in this case, all of a sudden I'm seen as the enemy, because for some reason this animosity has been created between the farmer and the miller. And my question to myself was, well, why am I being called the enemy? What is so wrong with working for a company to try to bring to the farmer better programs and assistance in different areas and better ways of doing things? So why am I being called the enemy? And I think it stemmed from my experience. Of course, it stemmed from misconceptions about the cane price and how that cane price is derived and how that formula works. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you know what? This is my opportunity. I have to verify, the information that it's being said on one side with the information that exists. And I went directly to the person at the time, que en paz descanse, Mr. Tony Sosa, who was the accountant that worked the cane price. And I said, Mr. Tony, show me the documents that you say, in this case, you BSI, say that you sent to farmers, because it is the perception of the farmers that BSI doesn't share documents. You don't share, yet is it in the commercial agreement. And he said, no, Olivia, I will show you everything. He was so patient. We sat for 2 hours showing me exactly how this process worked. And to my amazement, really, I was shocked to see the years and years of emails that go out to the association stating the contracts, the price of sugarcane by email, the shipping documents, the details on that. And I said, are you sure you send this to farmer? I am sure. Look, see, this is the signature of where they receive these things. So that was, I think, was my first lesson. I said, well, I will come back because I really need to understand how the cane price works. I said, my next question is, does the factory include cost of the factory operation and deduct it from farmers portion? And he said, absolutely not. That is not so, but let's leave that for the next lesson.
Now, at one point, you had just one association to work with. So how did things change, actually, when you had 3 associations and now 4?
Right. When it was one association, really, the conversation was more across the table. BSI shows up. if the association show up, then there's a conversation. Or if the farmers show up and BSI doesn't show up, there is no conversation. And so it was more a matter of across the table. What has changed really, and I think it's very healthy for our industry, is that more of a round table discussion where everybody has a seat at the table and nobody's head of any table. It is a discussion among stakeholders, and we want to make sure that we're both understanding our points of views and where we're coming from. The mill has a way of looking at the same information from a different perspective, while the farmers have a totally different perspective of how to look at the same piece of information. And it is when we bring people together in a roundtable type discussion that then we start to say, oh, but I didn't see it that way. Now I understand why the farmers are saying this. And that's a really important opportunity for the mill, because they can make adjustments to the activities happening on the ground.
Now, you talk about, the move from around across the table to around a table. How would you say your role also evolved?
Well, I'm at the center, I guess. But first, I saw myself as our department as a bridge between the farmers and the miller. But it has gotten a lot more complicated than that. And it's really, as we were discussing, a nexus of a number of different stakeholders. It's not just the farmers on one end and the miller on one end. There are other stakeholders, there are funding agencies that we are looking at that can bring to the farmers financing, capacity building, technical knowledge. So you're now adding funding agencies, you're adding development agencies, technical development agencies. Then you have, of course, very key to this is the financing. That has really taken a lot of a process and learning lessons to really get down and have a deep dive of the financing and why farmers are so indebted in a way and can't develop their productivity, the financing aspect of it. Then you also have other organizations that are willing to help. So it really has become not only within the associations themselves and the industry, but we are looking at a different type of working pattern.
Now, you've introduced quite a number of programs, and I don't want you to list them, but I do want you to highlight which was perhaps the most difficult to implement and which has been perhaps the most rewarding so far in terms of status. I know it's an ongoing process. There's no end. It's not linear. It's almost circular as you start each crop.
I think difficult to implement, I have to say, are the technology projects. Technology projects, and it happens to be one of my favorite areas. Not only technology in devices and the digital sort of technology, but also the farming technology, mechanical harvesting, changing from planting patterns. The farmers have a traditional way of planting pinchado, which means it's just stuck in the ground. And we're looking at ways in which you make furrows and bury the seeds so that it has a better root system. So for me, all the technology projects, although I'm excited about it and I want to implement it quickly, I have to take myself back a bit and be cautious of how we implement those projects. We have to look at what the barriers of the farmers are to address, to make that change. For one example, mechanical harvesting has been a neat one, a tough one, a successful one as well, because the barriers are physical. If the field has short rows, for example, you cannot implement that project, even though the farmer has the desire, has the potential in terms of financing. It's difficult to implement because of the physical barriers, and how you transform that takes time. So that has been, the technology ones have been the hard ones. And the most rewarding for sure has to be our work with women.
Now, you're a woman, you're coming in a very male dominated industry in general, and now you have to go out and interface with men, farmers, and try to teach and break down the barriers that you spoke about. So let's talk a little bit about your challenges as a woman in your position, and then the programs that have evolved over time.
Well, certainly, as a woman in a male-dominated sort of sector, I'm really lucky to work for an organization here at BSI and ASR Group that really embrace diversity. And they want to hear from you. So in that aspect, as a woman, it has been easier for me to bring my ideas to the forefront. But again, as a woman, you have sort of, will they actually take my advices, or do I think that they will see value in what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not a man, I'm not the guy in the suit, but I think it has been more about myself, having the confidence to voice that, to voice my ideas, and to really also ensure that you're doing your research, you're talking to people to ensure that you have the right information to be able to share with the rest. As a woman, also, you are a lot more emotional in your activities. So I think that has been a challenge to really ensure that your emotions are at a balance, and that you're not overly excited or too empathetic about certain matters, so that you're able to bring that balance. So of course, you want to make sure that, in my case, you put in a lot of passion in what you do, but also ensuring that you have that balance and making sure that you're building programs that are really objective and beneficial. The women programs, of course, when I came to BSI and even at BSCFA, you don't see a lot of women doing the activities. They are there, they're in the financing part of it, going to the banks, and they're in the background, but never at the forefront. And that was one of the things that I said, well, we look at the list, at the cane farmer list, and we identify that we have 1,800 or more women in the cane farmer registry, the official registry. And I'm like, well, where are all these women? How can we develop programs that they're interested in, maybe, or why are they not here? And we did an assessment, again going back to the source, to identify what the issues are. And we had an intern at the time, and Susie and the intern, Susana Castillo, and the intern then did a little survey with the women farmers, identify them, call them, going right down to their houses or wherever they are, to find out what is needed for them to participate in these activities. And I think the first thing that we discover when we ask them, well, why don't you come to the farmer field schools that CIRD is offering, or to the meetings, or to the activities? And in some cases, it's really about transportation. My husband has the vehicle all day, and so I don't have how to come, or I can't drive, and I don't have how to come, or the family doesn't have transportation to get, and the buses, the timing of when you do the meetings, we can't get the bus to be there on time. And so it was really looking at the barriers again. What are the barriers of why these women are not participating in the activities? And when you tweak that, then you see a lot of participation. And really, this second cohort for our Women Farmer Field School is overbooked in a way, because we have a certain capacity, and we're trying to ensure that we give the opportunity to all who applied for the training.
Now, when you work with women, what would you say is perhaps your singular message to them, because they're largely invisible? So, what would you say is your singular message to them to make themselves be heard and to create a safe space for them, first through your programs, but for them to actually build the confidence to step out?
I think the message is more come to the table, because these ladies, when they're actually here, they have far more questions than it would have been a regular program. They have far more questions and they have far more to say. And some of them even become teachers of the program and sharing. So the advice here is really come to the table, get engaged, come participate. It is when you participate that you can see all the potential that you have to offer. And in some cases, they also ask, okay, well, the next level, I want to learn Excel because I want to be able to calculate these things. And so that's when you are able to help the entire industry move forward, because then we learn, okay, what else we need to do to assist these women or these farmers to actually develop.
Now, do you see women first or farmers first?
I see women first.
Why?
Well, because I'm a woman. And so I know some of their needs. Some of them have children. They have to make arrangements. I have children. I have to make sure my kids go to school in the morning before I come, and they're well kept before I come to work. So I know their challenges, and I know that we have to design the programs for them differently. But first, as a mother, I see a woman, a mother, and of course, we see the job and we see the activities. And in everything, we see the people first. It is about helping people to grow sugar. It's not about sugarcane and making sure that we use people to grow sugarcane. It's the reverse. It's about growing people using the industry that we have and the resources that we have.
From the Cane Farmers Manager, we continue looking at programs designed to benefit farmers. Julia Clarke is the Director of Sugar Ethics for Tate & Lyle Sugars. Julia, who has a background in marketing, played a pivotal role for fair trade and its introduction in Belize while using it as a marketing tool in Europe. 15 years later, she continues to manage a fair trade program in Belize as a part of a number of programs to support small producer organizations. Julia talks about the future of fair trade and the untapped potential of women and youth.
I have two parts to my job, two areas of responsibility. One of them is fair trade, which I think people in Belize understand very well, and the other part is to make sure that all the other suppliers to Tate & Lyle in the UK and the other European refineries within the ASR group, the sugar that goes to them that isn't fair trade but is also sustainably sourced.
Now, sustainability has been something that we've been talking about. What are the parameters or the areas that you must consider under sustainability?
Probably breaks down into three different areas. One is human rights, and that would include, most significantly actually, safe working practices and responsible hiring practices, including child labour prevention and forced labour prevention. Then the other would be environment. So that would be, in an agricultural context, managing your fertilizer input, managing runoff, making sure you've got good soil health, making sure that you're protecting the waterways and the air around you. And then the third would be governance, to make sure that the correct controls and record keeping and things like that were in place so that we can check. We have to have a certain amount of records in somebody's system in order for an auditor to go in and ascertain that they're doing the right thing. So there's a governance element to it as well.
Now, when we talk about fair trade, how do you qualify for fair trade, and how did that end up, or how did Belize end up being a part of fair trade?
Well, that takes us right back to the early 2000s. I actually joined Tate & Lyle as head of marketing. My background's actually marketing. And at that time, I was looking for a way to tell the story of the brand to British consumers. Tate & Lyle, being made from cane sugar, has a point of differentiation with the other big brand of sugar in the UK, which is made from beet. And we wanted to talk to consumers about what a cane farming environment was like, and also about the role of sugar companies within that. It's an important source of income, an important source of jobs in those countries. And as we explored this idea, we came across the concept of fair trade, which on one level is basically just an audit organization that audits supplier producers and makes sure that they meet those criteria I mentioned: human rights, environment, governance. But on another level, works as a way to fund, to channel funds into the producer areas to finance compliance with those things. So looking at how we would do that, we were recommended to come to Belize, a country where we had a good relationship with the miller. Tate & Lyle had a good relationship with the miller, where there were a good operation, and English being spoke was also quite helpful. And so we started our journey there with fair trade in 2008. And that's how I've been doing this ever since.
And that's prior to ASR actually coming. Now, when you talk about the relationship with not only the miller, but the farmers, how do you maintain that? And how do you ensure that the certification that you're talking about, that is maintained on the farmer's side or on the miller side?
Well, that's not my role. That's the Fair Trade Organization, which is the other party to this arrangement. So the Fair Trade Organization splits into two parts. They've got the auditing part, who comes and checks that those standards that I mentioned are being followed. But they also provide lots of support in country. At the moment here, we have Miss Yanis Marcia, who works very hard supporting our producers in Belize. So they're a really important part of this whole arrangement, because they are an independent third party who are both supporting and assuring compliance with the standards.
So fair trade is not just free money.
It's not free money. I'm sure as part of your series, you'll end up interviewing some of the people whose job it is to comply, and it's difficult. It's hard work. There's a lot of new topics to be covered, a lot of new processes that have to be put in place in producer organizations to enable the communication, the monitoring to take place, and the education of members of the associations about what needs to be done.
Where do you see fair trade going in Belize?
Well, I've visited several cane farmer organizations during this trip to Belize, and I have been blown away by the progress they've made. The first challenge for any organization when it's first certified is to build their own capacity, build their own ability to do things. It's quite a big task, and it's quite daunting when producer organizations first certify. But I've visited some of the producer organizations this time, and they've got really sophisticated projects, several years in, producing amazing results, and they're able to look back and see the impact of those projects. So in terms of where it's going, I hope it continues along that vein. Our vision for fair trade in Belize is that the money that comes with fair trade is a catalyst to improve the industry, to improve people's livelihoods within the industry. It's the cash you need to effect the change that's necessary to keep sugar viable and maintain sugar as a good job, a good career choice for farmers. But we all know that it's an evolving industry, and we all know that evolution takes money and is very challenging. And fair trade is the catalyst, the money and the skills to help people make that evolution. So in answer to your question, what I'm hoping for is that the associations find a way to use that money and that support to create organizations that are fit for the future, that are fit for a successful and viable industry in the future.
Final question, any areas that you'd like to see the industry move more into?
Interesting question. I think you have untapped resource in Belize in women who are often on the margins of the industry. And I've met lots of amazing women here, but they're often not sitting at the table when the big decisions are made. And I also think that you have an awful lot of really great young people who also should be given a voice in the industry, because we're talking about the future here, and they are obviously the farmers of the future. They're the ones with more of an appetite to innovate, more of an appetite to embrace technology. And I think the old folks, and I count myself among them, that are in the industry at the moment can gain a lot from listening and learning from these other voices within the industry. It's got to be a two-way street. I'm not saying one group should take over the other, but there's room for everybody, and more voices the better.
Did you know that since 2015, fair trade premiums have benefited Belizean cane farmers to the tune of more than 40 million Belizean dollars? Both Julia and Olivia spoke about women's programs. In this serving of our recurrent Out and About segment, Jeremy Gungara takes a closer look at the Women Farmers Field School and files this feature.
William, we're out in the fields near Tower Hill today. Women cane farmers are largely invisible, but did you know that we have over 2,000 women cane farmers in the northern sugar industry? Going to school to increase your knowledge is nothing new, and neither is taking out farmers into the fields. But what makes this one different is that its focus is on women. Good morning. I'm here with Olivia Avilez, Farmer Relations Manager, who's basically the mastermind behind the Women Farmers Field School. First of all, can you tell us a bit about the objective of the Women Farmers Field School?
The women farmer field schools are were introduced by CERDI in the industry, and they were general for any farmer who wanted to attend. We kind of tweaked this one to ensure that we are really bringing in the women and having a space for them to be able to learn about things that they wanted to do. So we did a survey in 2018 about what are some of the topics that women were interested in, and they were definitely interested in cane farming. They have cane fields with their husbands. They have, some of them are widows, so they have to take care of their fields, and they really wanted to learn more details. So we designed this program just for them on their timing. So we often will make sure that we are doing it at their time that's most convenient. So the Women Farmer Field School follows the same methodology that is followed in the others, and we have a trained instructor that was trained by CERDI to implement these kinds of activities. So we are doing it. This is cohort number 1. We have about 18 women signed up to this first cohort, and we will also launch another call for women farmers who want to learn the entire package. It's a 8-module program that's implemented for a whole year. So we go from land preparation to furrowing to planting to soil sort of management to today ratoon maintenance, varieties. We also will cover harvesting, both manual and mechanical, and particularly they were very interested in the financial management. So once they've learned the entire practical and field part, we're going to do the last module, which is financial management of the cane fields and cost benefits, so that wraps up the package. This first cohort is being co-funded by the Hershey's company. This upcoming one will be funded by the Hershey's company as well. We hope that others take interest along with BSI to continue funding for other women that may want to participate. In reality, we want to cover the 2,000 plus women that may be interested in cane farming. So, of course, we want to ensure that we establish the learning modules for anyone, all the women who want to participate, and also have sessions, refresher sessions and more detailed sessions as per what they want and what they need. And of course, establish a good working relationship with our cane farmers. Our cane farmers are our major service providers, and we need to have that good relationship with all of them.
Can you tell us a bit more about the module that we witnessed today?
Today's module is the ratoon maintenance, part of cane farming. This is after harvesting. Once the cane field is cut, there are a number of things that need to happen quickly to ensure that the production of the cane that's coming up. Sugar cane is a fantastic little plant. Actually, it's a grass, and just like your lawn, if you cut it, it will grow back. Um, However, we only want sugarcane to grow back, and we want to control the weeds that are growing back, because we are also having weeds, and that needs to be controlled within a time, or else it will take away from the nourishment of the sugarcane, and therefore the productivity of what that field can yield, and the tonnage where the money is, right? So we definitely have to control weeds. We have to fertilize, and you don't want to fertilize a field that's full of weeds, because of course you're going to be feeding the weeds, and that's not what we want. And you also have to look at practices to control any pests that may arise. So all of those things are done sort of within the first 90 days after a field has been harvested, and that's critical so that we're able to get the right productivity. And of course, we have some environmental practices that we highlight as well, such as not double burning the organic material, the leaves, and using it and managing it in a way that you're able to reduce your chemicals. You're able to also ensure that you're managing your pests, and also conserving the soil and moisture.
What is your hope in terms of them walking away from this program and going back to their households and into their fields? What is it that you hope for?
Well, we hope that first of all, they will absorb the information and start talking about it, and start making business decisions with the information. We know already that the women are discussing it with their husbands, with their peers, with kin farmers, and how to do things better. Anecdotes, for example, from the previous classes, were that they didn't know that you want to ensure enough seed cane in one area. So these are some of the things that they will start learning, so that in particular we want them to establish good fields that are productive, that are yielding the maximum amount of sugar cane that they can get out of that field. That's the business. We want to make sure that their yields are good, and their cost is being looked at, so that they are able to make a good profit out of good productive fields.
Siempre es bueno aprender, como nosotros como mujeres, involucrarnos en la industria azucarera, porque pues de eso vivimos en el norte y nuestros esposos lo hacen. Nosotros sabemos sumar y ciertas cosas, pero entonces lo del field no nos involucramos tanto, pero siempre es bueno saber. Básicamente que él tiene un diferente manejo de sus plantas, y desde cuando se empieza la preparación del suelo a la cosecha es todo diferente a lo que nosotros hacemos. Bueno, algunas cosas diferentes. Entonces, es bueno saber otras prácticas para así, pues ponerlo en práctica también. A ver si podemos tener mejores resultados como cañeros.
He aprendido que cómo para sembrar, porque si tienes que enseñar cómo para sembrar la caña, cómo para sembrarlo, cómo le vamos a echar fertilizer y para taparlo también. Aquí hemos visto que a la manera como nosotros sembramos es mucho más diferente como ellos siembran. Es que ahorita miramos cómo ellos siembran y hay que practicarlo también. Porque ahorita tenemos un pedazo que aramos, pues, y como ya miré cómo se siembra, pues yo creo que le voy a mostrar a mis hijos también.
¿Le recomendaría a otras cañeras que se incorporen a estas sesiones de educación?
Sí, lo recomendaría que se involucren más, nos involucremos más como mujeres, porque muchas veces nosotros nos enfocamos solo en comida, en ciertas cosas, pero lo que se trata de mantenimiento no sabemos mucho. Entonces, siempre es muy bueno. Cualquier capacitación es buena.
Estaría bueno sí que otras mujeres también los acompañen, porque va a haber otra sesión, nosotros terminemos, va a haber otro grupo que creo que están animados para entrar. También son cordialmente invitados para que entren, para que aprendan.
We're able to take a closer look at the ratoon maintenance module. Following this is the last module and then graduation for these women cane farmers. I'm Jeremy Gongora for Out and About. Back to you, William, for more on the grind.
As Jeremy said, the introductory cohort graduated in March as part of our Women's Month activities. Our guest speaker was the Special Envoy for the Development of Families and Children, Her Excellency Rosana Briceño. Here is a pictorial essay from the ceremony.
The Women Farmer Field School program is a great example of the importance of investing in education and participation of women in the agricultural industry. Programs like these contribute to creating a more inclusive and diverse industry that values and respects the involvement and empowerment of women. During the Women Farmer Field School program, the women learned how to improve sugarcane yields and quality, and produce sugarcane sustainably as we seek to reduce our carbon footprint. The program spanned the entire cane growing cycle. This group was further empowered with the necessary knowledge and skills to flourish in the cane industry and become better cañeras. I congratulate each and every one of you for successfully completing the program. Your commitment and dedication to learning and improving your skills are admirable and speak to your character as strong, hardworking, and competitive cane farmers.
BSI is the largest employer in the North, with more than 500 people powering our operations. If you add in temps and casuals, that number moves closer to 700. In this segment entitled People Power and Empowered, we highlight the diversity, that means job, gender, and age amongst other things, of our workforce. See if you spot any familiar faces from friends to family. You never know. With that, we've come to the end of another episode of On the Grind. Once again, we hope that it has been the right amount of edutainment, education, and entertainment on the Northern Sugar industry. Please continue to like, share, and comment as we shine a light on the machinations of the industry. We leave you once again with the theme song consisting of factory sounds, harvested and arranged by Elric Tillett and Chandler White to capture the industrial symphony that is Tower Hill. Listen carefully, and when the siren sounds, know that we're only changing shifts because we stay on the grind 24/7 on the clock. Until next time, I'm your host, William A. Neal. Thank you for tuning in.